Captain Elara Miles stood on the bridge of the Endurance, staring out at the endless stretch of stars. She was alone, her crew busy with their tasks, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She had always dreamed of exploring the deepest corners of the galaxy, and today she was closer than ever to discovering something extraordinary. The long-range scanners had picked up a faint signal from an unknown planet in the farthest reaches of space. It wasn't much, just a faint whisper among the stars, but it was enough to draw Elara's attention. As a seasoned explorer, she had seen many strange things, but something about this signal felt different. "Captain, we're approaching the planet," called out Lieutenant Tanner, a young officer with a sharp mind and quick wit. He was monitoring the ship's systems from his station and had been tracking the signal for hours. His voice broke Elara from her thoughts. "Understood," Elara replied. She straightened up in her chair, adjusting her uniform. "Prepare the shuttle. I want a team on the surface immediately." The Endurance was a sleek, well-equipped exploration ship designed to withstand the harshest environments. It was built for long journeys and deep space missions, and this mission was no different. As the ship slowly approached the planet, the crew could see that the surface was covered in what seemed to be ruins, large, crumbling structures that looked ancient. It was as if time itself had forgotten this place. "Look at that," Tanner said, his voice filled with awe. "This doesn't look like any planet we've seen before." Elara nodded, her curiosity piqued. "Set a course for the surface. I'll take the shuttle down myself." A few moments later, Elara and a small team of explorers were on their way down to the planet's surface. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, the crew could see more clearly. The planet's surface was dotted with strange, alien structures, some towering and majestic, others broken and half sunk into the ground. There were no signs of life, no animals, no plants, just ruins, stretching for miles. The shuttle touched down gently in a wide clearing, and Elara opened the hatch, stepping out onto the planet's soil. The air was thin, but breathable. She took a deep breath, her boots crunching on the dust beneath her feet. It was eerily quiet, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The team spread out, scanning the area. "What are we looking for, Captain?" asked Dr. Malin, the ship's archaeologist. She was fascinated by the history of long-lost civilizations and had spent her career studying ancient alien cultures. "We're looking for answers," Elara replied. Something feels off about this place. It's like it's been forgotten, abandoned. But why?" As they ventured further into the ruins, they discovered more clues. Strange carvings were etched into the walls of the structures, symbols that none of the crew could recognize. They appeared to be a mix of mathematical formulas and geometric shapes, and they seemed to pulse faintly with an energy that no one could explain. "These carvings, they're unlike anything I've ever seen," Dr. Malin said, studying them closely. "This civilization, whoever they were incredibly advanced." Elara nodded, her mind racing. But why would such an advanced civilization leave all of this behind? The team continued to explore, but the answers remained elusive. As they moved deeper into the heart of the ruins, they came across a large, circular building. Its entrance was blocked by fallen debris, but it seemed to be important, different from the other structures they had seen so far. Elara ordered the team to clear the rubble, and after several hours of hard work, the entrance was revealed. The door was heavy, made of a material that shimmered faintly in the dim light. It looked like it could have been made of metal or stone, but it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. "Get ready," Elara said, her voice calm but filled with anticipation. "Let's see what's inside." As the door slowly creaked open, a low hum filled the air. It was the same sound they had heard on their scanners, a faint, rhythmic pulse. The room inside was vast, and at its center stood a pedestal, upon which sat a small device, glowing with soft blue light. It was beautiful, almost mesmerizing. "That's it," Dr. Malin said, her voice filled with awe. That's the source of the signal. Ilara stepped forward cautiously. She could feel a strange pull, a sense of urgency that made her heart race. Whatever this device was, it had been waiting here for a long time. But who had left it? And why? Before she could touch it, a loud crackling noise interrupted the silence. The signal, once faint and distant, was now growing stronger. The device began to hum louder, and the walls of the room seemed to vibrate. The team exchanged nervous glances. "We need to leave," Tanner said, his voice sharp with concern. "This doesn't feel right." But Ilara didn't move. She stared at the device, sensing that it was more than just a simple artifact. It was a message, something left behind by the civilization that had once called this planet home. And she, along with her crew, was about to uncover the truth of what had happened to them. The days that followed their discovery on the strange, desolate planet were filled with more questions than answers. Captain Ilara Miles and her team were unable to ignore the strange device they had found in the circular building. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered, and it had been waiting on the abandoned planet for countless years. Yet they couldn't figure out its purpose. After securing the device back on the Endurance, Ilara decided it was time to learn more. The signals they had been tracking were growing clearer, more urgent, almost as if the planet itself was alive. Her first priority was to understand what happened to the civilization that had once thrived here. Dr. Malin was deep in research, poring over the ancient texts and carvings they had discovered in the ruins. The language was complex, but she managed to decipher a few words and phrases. "This is incredible," she said one evening in the ship's command room. "These markings tell a story, a history of a people. I believe they were called the Althari." Ilara leaned over, scanning the translation. "The Althari? What happened to them?" Dr. Malin hesitated. "It's not entirely clear, but from what I can gather, the Althari were once an advanced civilization, peaceful, intelligent, and incredibly capable. Their technology was far beyond anything we have today. It seems that they were also quite spiritual, with a deep understanding of the universe and its mysteries." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "Then why is this planet abandoned? Why did they leave all this behind?" Dr. Malin frowned, tracing her fingers across the carvings. "It's almost as if they were abandoned by everyone they knew. The signs point to a time of great betrayal. They were once part of a galactic alliance, but something happened. There was a war, one that they didn't start, but one that destroyed their world." Ilara sat back, stunned. "A war? But with whom?" "We don't know yet," Dr. Malin replied, her voice filled with a mix of sadness and curiosity. "All the records are vague, but what's clear is that they were left behind. Every galactic civilization they once allied with, civilizations much older and stronger than they were, turned their backs on them. It's like they were abandoned in their time of need." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen betrayal before, had even felt the sting of it in her own life, but nothing compared to what the Althari had endured. A race so advanced, so full of promise, left to die alone on their homeworld. Over the next few weeks, the Endurance crew continued to study the ruins and the artifacts they had collected. The more they discovered, the more they understood about the Althari's tragic downfall. The once proud people had been betrayed by their so-called allies, their technology destroyed in a devastating conflict. With their homeworld shattered, the surviving Althari had been forced to retreat into the shadows, hiding from the very galaxy that had once called them friends. But there was something else that didn't add up. Despite the loss of their planet and the betrayal of their allies, the Althari had left behind more than just ruins. They had left behind a legacy. The more Ilara thought about it, the more she realized that the planet was more than just a graveyard. It was a message. As the crew of the Endurance dug deeper into the ruins, they began to uncover strange, hidden chambers. Inside these chambers were more devices, more pieces of technology that hinted at a greater purpose. The Althari hadn't just been advanced, they had been on the verge of something extraordinary. The technology they had created seemed to stretch beyond the material realm, tapping into something far more powerful, something that no one had ever truly understood. One evening, as Ilara sat in her quarters, staring at the starry expanse through the viewport, she received a message from Dr. Malin. It was a breakthrough. "I think I've figured it out," Dr. Malin said excitedly over the comms. The Altheri weren't just technologically advanced. They had a unique connection to the universe itself, something we don't even fully understand. They were working on harnessing the energy of the stars, using it to power their civilization. But something went wrong. Ilara's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "The war," Dr. Malin continued. "It wasn't just a political conflict. It was a conflict over this very energy. The Altheri's enemies feared what they were becoming, feared that the Altheri's control over the universe's energy would make them too powerful. So they attacked. They destroyed their technology, crushed their people, and left them to die." Ilara was silent for a long moment. "And that's why they're gone, why they were abandoned. But they didn't just give up, did they?" "No," Dr. Malin replied. "They didn't. There are records of the Altheri attempting to activate something buried deep within their homeworld, something that could potentially restore their power and give them the ability to rise again." Ilara felt a spark of hope. "So, they're not entirely gone. There's a chance that they could come back." Dr. Malin's voice was filled with excitement. "Yes, there's still hope, but it's not going to be easy. Whatever the Altheri were trying to do, they left clues behind. If we can find those clues, we might be able to help them rebuild." Ilara stood up, a sense of purpose rising within her. "Then let's do it. Let's help them rebuild. We won't let them be forgotten." With that, Ilara knew what she had to do. The Altheri had been abandoned, betrayed by the very civilizations they had trusted. But now humanity had found them. And this time, they wouldn't be left to fade into history. The decision had been made. Captain Ilara Miles had promised to help the Altheri, a race left behind by the rest of the galaxy, and she intended to keep that promise. With their ancient technology and deep connection to the universe, the Altheri had so much potential, but they had been betrayed and abandoned by every other civilization. It was now up to the crew of the Endurance and the humans to help them stand again. Ilara knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. The galaxy was a vast and complicated place, filled with factions that had their own interests. Helping the Altheri might not only put her crew in danger, but also threaten the established order of the galaxy. But she also knew one thing: humanity didn't shy away from the difficult paths. The Endurance wasn't just a ship of explorers. It was a symbol of hope for those who had been left behind. As the days passed, Ilara and her crew worked tirelessly, studying the ruins and the ancient devices left behind by the Altheri. Dr. Malin was making progress with the translations, and the rest of the team was working on understanding the energy sources that had powered the Altheri civilization. The more they learned, the clearer it became that the Altheri were not just another lost species. They had the potential to reshape the galaxy. But to do so, they needed help, and that help would have to come from someone willing to challenge the status quo. The crew of the Endurance knew they had to make contact with the Altheri's remaining leaders. There was no telling how the survivors would react. After all, they had been betrayed by every race they had once trusted. It was possible that the Altheri would see humanity's offer of help as a trap or a trick. But Ilara was determined to try. One morning, as the crew gathered in the command room, Dr. Malin brought good news. "I've made contact with one of the surviving elders," she said. "Her name is Lyra. She's one of the last of their people, and she's agreed to meet with us." Ilara stood up, feeling a rush of excitement. "Where do we meet?" "In the heart of the ruins," Dr. Malin explained. "There's a hidden sanctuary deep within the planet's mountains. It's where the Altheri leaders once gathered, and Lyra believes it's the safest place for us to meet." Ilara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Let's get to work then. Prepare a shuttle. We'll go meet her ourselves." The journey to the hidden sanctuary wasn't an easy one. The mountains on the planet were vast and rugged, filled with dangerous terrain and ancient traps set long ago by the Althari to protect their sacred places. But Ilara's crew was well prepared. They navigated the rocky paths, using their knowledge of the Althari's technology to unlock the ancient gates that led into the heart of the sanctuary. When they finally arrived, they were greeted by Lyra, a tall and graceful figure whose eyes seemed to reflect the weight of her people's history. Her skin was a soft shade of silver, and her features were both alien and familiar. Despite her people's fall, there was a strength in her presence that commanded respect. "You are humans," Lyra said, her voice soft but firm. "You are the ones who found us." Ilara stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. "We found you because we want to help," she said. "We've seen what your people were capable of. We've seen the potential you still have. We want to work together to rebuild what was lost." Lyra's expression softened, but there was still doubt in her eyes. "Why should we trust you? We were abandoned by every other civilization. Why would humans, of all races, want to help us?" Ilara's gaze remained steady. "Because humanity believes in second chances. We believe in helping those who have been left behind. We don't forget our allies." Lyra was silent for a long moment, her eyes scanning Ilara's face as if trying to determine if her words were genuine. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Very well. I will trust you. For now. But know this. I will not risk my people's survival on empty promises." Ilara smiled. "We don't make empty promises. We're here to help you rebuild, and we'll do whatever it takes." As the conversation continued, the two leaders discussed the future of the Althari. Lyra explained that her people had never truly given up. They had been planning for a return to greatness, hidden away in the deepest corners of their planet, waiting for the right moment. The technology they had developed was still intact, though scattered and forgotten. And with it, they could once again become the powerful race they had once been. But rebuilding wouldn't be easy. The galaxy had changed since the Althari had been abandoned, and many of the civilizations that had turned their backs on them were still in power. Lyra and Ilara both knew that their alliance would draw the attention of these powerful factions. It was only a matter of time before someone tried to stop them. Still, Ilara remained resolute. "We will face whatever comes together," she said. "We're not just helping you rebuild your civilization. We're building a future where everyone, no matter their past, has a chance to thrive." Lyra's eyes glowed softly, a sign of hope beginning to awaken within her. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps this is the beginning of something new." With their alliance sealed, the two leaders turned their attention to the task ahead, awakening the Althari's forgotten technology, securing their place in the galaxy, and preparing for whatever opposition might arise. It was a monumental task, but with humanity's help, the Althari had a chance to rise again. The alliance between the humans and the Althari had been formed, with Captain Ilara Miles and her crew by their side. Lyra, the last leader of the Althari, felt a spark of hope she had not felt in centuries. Together, they would restore what had been lost, rebuild a civilization that had once been the pride of the galaxy, and take back what was rightfully theirs. The work ahead was daunting. The Althari's technology was scattered across the ruins of their once great cities, hidden deep within underground vaults and remote sanctuaries. Some devices were intact, others had been damaged beyond repair, and still others were completely gone, their secrets lost to time. But Ilara and her team were determined to help. Over the next few weeks, the Endurance was repurposed for the mission. It was no longer just an exploration ship. It was now a center of operations for the rebuilding of the Althari civilization. The crew worked tirelessly, dividing their time between gathering resources, studying the ancient texts, and exploring the ruins on the planet's surface. With each passing day, they grew closer to unlocking the full potential of the Althari's forgotten technology. Dr. Mellon had made significant progress in understanding the ancient scripts left behind by the Althari. They had discovered more details about the energy they had harnessed, an energy that could tap into the very fabric of the universe. It was this energy that had made the Altheri one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and it was this energy that could help them rise again. Ilara knew that they couldn't do it alone. They needed allies, those who would support the Altheri's return to power. The galaxy was vast, and many factions still remembered the Altheri's downfall. Some of these factions were too powerful to ignore, and they might see the Altheri's rise as a threat to their own interests. But Ilara was determined to take that risk. Humanity had always stood up for what was right, no matter the cost. One day, while Ilara and Lyra were discussing their plans, a signal came through from the ship's communication officer. It was an urgent message from a nearby star system. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Tanner said, his voice filled with urgency. "It's a transmission from the Galactic Council." Ilara's heart sank. The Galactic Council was the governing body of the galaxy, made up of representatives from all the major civilizations. It was their job to maintain order and peace, but Ilara knew that their decisions weren't always just. In the past, the Altheri had been abandoned by the very same council that now sent this message. She made her way to the bridge, where Lieutenant Tanner was already working to decode the message. The screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. A representative from the council, a tall alien with green skin and sharp features. "Captain Ilara Miles," the representative began, "we are aware of your activities on the planet Althera. You have been working with the Altheri people, helping them rebuild their civilization. This is not acceptable. The Altheri were once part of our alliance, but their betrayal of the Council during the Great War has not been forgotten." Ilara's hands tightened around the edge of the console. She had expected this. She had known that the Altheri's return wouldn't go unnoticed. The Council would see them as a threat, and the representative's words only confirmed her suspicions. "We demand that you cease all operations on Althera immediately," the representative continued, his voice cold and authoritative. "Failure to comply will result in severe consequences." Ilara stood tall, her resolve hardening. "The Altheri are not a threat," she said firmly. "They are survivors, just like us. They have been betrayed, and now they have a chance to rebuild. We are not abandoning them." The representative's eyes narrowed. "You underestimate the danger they pose, Captain. The galaxy does not forget its enemies, and the Altheri's time has passed. We will not allow you to undo the peace we have worked so hard to maintain." With a sharp motion, the representative's image disappeared, leaving only the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Ilara's mind raced. The Council would not back down easily, and their warning was a clear threat. If they didn't stop their work, the Endurance and its crew could face grave consequences. Lyra entered the room, her expression calm but filled with worry. "Captain, what did they say?" Ilara took a deep breath, turning to face her. "They're threatening us, Lyra. They want us to stop helping you, or they'll take action. The Galactic Council doesn't want the Altheri to rise again." Lyra's silver eyes flashed with determination. "Then we will rise in secret. We have no choice. If we are to survive, we must rebuild without their interference." Ilara nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The Altheri had spent centuries in hiding, but now they were being given a chance to return. It was not a chance they could afford to lose. "We won't stop," Ilara said, her voice filled with conviction. "We will finish what we started, and if the Council comes for us, we will be ready." The decision was made. The Endurance would continue its mission, no matter the risks. The Altheri would rebuild, and with the help of humanity, they would rise again. But they would do so in secret, away from the watchful eyes of the galaxy's ruling powers. It was a bold move, but Ilara knew that it was the only one they could make. The Altheri's future, and the future of the galaxy, depended on it. The tension between the humans and the Galactic Council continued to rise. After the warning from the Council, Captain Ilara Miles knew that they were walking a fine line. The Endurance and its crew had helped the Altheri begin their journey toward recovery, but they could feel the eyes of the galaxy watching them. They had done what they promised, but the road ahead was uncertain and dangerous. Lyra, the Altheri leader, had chosen to take their rebuilding efforts underground, literally and figuratively. The last remnants of the Altheri's ancient cities were hidden beneath the planet's surface, in deep caves and tunnels that stretched for miles. The ruins of their once great civilization were now a secret sanctuary where they could work without fear of detection. Ilara knew that if the Galactic Council learned of the Altheri's hidden stronghold, they would not hesitate to send forces to destroy it. On the surface, the planet seemed quiet, barren even. But beneath the ground, the Altheri were working hard to revive their forgotten technology. They had found a source of energy deep within the planet that, if harnessed, could make their civilization far stronger than before. The energy was powerful, capable of powering entire cities, and it could be the key to restoring the Altheri to their former glory. But the energy came with a cost. Its use could be dangerous, even deadly, if mismanaged. Dr. Malin, who had become one of the most trusted members of the crew, had been working with Lyra and the Altheri engineers to develop a safe way to harness the energy. It wasn't easy. The ancient technology had been designed for a different era, and much of it had been damaged or destroyed in the war that had shattered their world. But Malin was determined to succeed, and little by little, they were making progress. Ilara spent her days in constant communication with Lyra and the crew, helping coordinate their efforts and ensuring that the rebuilding went smoothly. She knew that time was running out. The Council's threat still hung over them like a shadow, and they couldn't afford to wait too long before activating the Altheri's hidden power. But even as they worked tirelessly, Ilara had a feeling that something wasn't quite right. One evening, as the crew gathered for a meeting in the ship's briefing room, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Altheri had hidden themselves so well, so far underground, yet Ilara's instincts told her that the Council was already moving against them. She leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "I've been thinking," Ilara began, glancing around at her crew. "The Council won't just let us rebuild the Altheri in peace. We're too close to their enemies, too close to uncovering the truth about what happened all those years ago." Dr. Malin nodded, her face tight with concern. "You're right, Captain. They're going to want to stop us. The energy we're trying to harness, if it gets into the wrong hands, it could change everything." "We've already seen their warning," Lieutenant Tanner said. "If they're watching us, it won't be long before they try to shut us down." Ilara sat back in her chair, thinking carefully. "We've come this far, and we can't stop now. The Altheri need this chance to rebuild, but we need to make sure that we're ready for whatever comes next." It was then that a new idea formed in Ilara's mind. She stood up suddenly, a plan beginning to take shape. "I think it's time we take a more active approach. We need to gather more allies, those who will help us protect the Altheri and their future." Her crew exchanged glances. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" Dr. Malin asked, her voice filled with curiosity. "We need to find others who have been left behind by the galaxy. There must be other races, other people who have been abandoned like the Altheri. We can't do this alone. If we can build a coalition of the forgotten, we might stand a chance against the Council." Lieutenant Tanner's eyes widened. A coalition of the forgotten. But where do we even begin? Who would join us? Ilara's eyes were filled with determination. "We start by reaching out. We make contact with anyone who has suffered under the Council's rule. We don't know who they are, but there are always those who are willing to fight for something better. And if we can unite them, we might have the strength to stand up to the Council." The crew nodded, understanding the gravity of Ilara's words. They had spent so long helping the Altheri rebuild that they had never truly thought about what might happen if the Council came after them. But now, they knew what they had to do. As the meeting ended, Ilara couldn't help but think back to her own past. When humanity had been on the brink of collapse, abandoned by the rest of the galaxy, and left to fight for their survival. It had been humanity's own struggle that had taught them the value of perseverance and unity. She knew that if they could rise from the ashes, then so could the Altheri, and so could anyone else who had been left behind. The next morning, the crew of the Endurance began their work. They sent out encrypted messages to distant star systems, reaching out to any civilization or group that might be willing to stand with them. They knew the risks. If the Galactic Council intercepted their messages, it could mean the end of everything they had worked for. But Ilara believed that they had to take the chance. Hours passed, then days. It wasn't until the third day that they received their first reply, an encrypted message from a distant system known as the Caldari Reach. The message was short but clear. "We are watching. We stand with you." It was a start. Ilara smiled, her heart swelling with hope. The shadows of the past were closing in, but perhaps they could find the strength to fight back after all. The coalition of the forgotten had begun. The first message from the Caldari Reach had been a beacon of hope. It was brief, but it confirmed what Captain Ilara Miles had suspected. There were others who had been left behind, just like the Altheri, others who had suffered under the rule of the Galactic Council. Now, it was time to make their presence known and build a coalition that could stand against the power of the Council. Ilara stood on the bridge of the Endurance, watching the stars streak by as the ship made its way toward the Caldari Reach. The Caldari were a mysterious people, known for their technological prowess and their isolation from the rest of the galaxy. They had once been part of the Council's alliances, but they had withdrawn from galactic affairs years ago, choosing to remain hidden in the far reaches of the galaxy. Ilara wasn't sure what to expect when they arrived. The Caldari had been quiet for so long, and their message had been so cryptic. But she knew they had to be allies. They had to be the first step in building the network of forgotten civilizations that could help protect the Altheri and eventually overthrow the influence of the Galactic Council. "We're entering the Caldari Reach, Captain," Lieutenant Tanner said, his voice breaking through Ilara's thoughts. "We'll be in range of their station in about 30 minutes. "Good," Ilara replied. "Prepare a team. I'll go with Dr. Malin and Lyra to make contact." The Caldari station was located on a massive asteroid, hidden in the dense fields of debris that made up the outermost rim of the Reach. It was a place few had ever seen, and even fewer had entered. The Caldari had built their station to be a fortress, a safe haven from the rest of the galaxy. But now it would become a meeting point, a place where alliances could be forged. As the Endurance docked with the Caldari station, Ilara couldn't shake the sense of anticipation that filled the air. The station was eerily quiet, its dark metal walls standing in stark contrast to the bustling energy of the Endurance. It felt as though they had entered another world, one that had been forgotten by time. Ilara, Dr. Malin, and Lyra stepped off the ship, their boots echoing in the silence of the station's docking bay. The Caldari were waiting for them. Tall, silent figures cloaked in dark robes, their faces obscured by masks that reflected the dim light of the station. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine as they approached, but she didn't let it show. This was a crucial moment. The leader of the Caldari stepped forward, his mask hiding his expression, but his voice was clear and steady. "You are Captain Ilara Miles of the Endurance," he said, "and you bring the Altheri to our doorstep. Why?" Ilara stood tall, meeting the Caldari leader's gaze. "We come to offer an alliance. The Altheri are not the enemy of the galaxy. They are survivors, and together, we can rebuild what has been lost. The Galactic Council has abandoned many races, and it is time for those who have been forgotten to stand together. We need your help." The Caldari leader was silent for a moment, his gaze sweeping over Lyra, who stood beside Ilara, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "The Altheri are dangerous," he finally said, his voice carrying a warning. "They were once powerful, and that power could easily be misused." Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "We have no interest in war. We have been betrayed and abandoned. We seek only to rebuild and live in peace, if we are allowed. The Caldari leader studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Very well. We will listen to your offer. But understand this, if we are to join you, we will not act without caution. The council has eyes everywhere, and their reach is long. We will need to be strategic. Ilara's heart raced with relief. The Caldari were agreeing to help them, but she also knew the road ahead would not be easy. The Galactic Council would not simply let them go unnoticed, and the Caldari, though powerful, would be just as vulnerable to the Council's wrath as the Althari were. We understand, Ilara said. We are prepared to move carefully. Our goal is to create a network of forgotten civilizations, those who have been abandoned by the Council. Together, we will stand strong. The Caldari leader stepped back, raising his hand in a gesture of respect. Then let it begin. We will work with you, Captain Miles. But you must be prepared. The Council will not forgive this. They will come for us, and they will come hard. Ilara nodded, her determination growing stronger. We're ready. The Endurance and her crew will protect the Althari. We'll protect you. As the Caldari leader turned to signal his people to begin preparations for the alliance, Ilara exchanged a brief glance with Dr. Malin and Lyra. They had taken a huge step forward, but the journey was far from over. The Caldari might have agreed to join their cause, but the true challenge lay ahead. Finding more allies, preparing for the Council's inevitable retaliation, and ensuring that the Althari's future would not be erased by the very forces that had abandoned them. The galaxy was about to change, but Ilara knew that their fight would be long and difficult. She had seen the consequences of standing against the Council before. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, they had the strength of the Forgotten behind them. The storm was gathering, but Ilara was ready to face it head-on. The alliance had grown stronger, and Ilara felt the weight of what they were about to do. With the Caldari now on their side, they had a powerful ally in their corner. But they knew that the hardest part was yet to come. The Galactic Council would not let them succeed without a fight. Their warning had been clear. If they didn't stop helping the Althari, there would be consequences, and Ilara could feel that those consequences were coming soon. The Endurance and the Caldari station had become the heart of their operation. The crew worked tirelessly, using the hidden Althari technology to strengthen their position. They knew the energy they were tapping into could change the balance of power in the galaxy, and if they could fully harness it, they could protect not just the Althari, but every civilization the Council had abandoned. Ilara paced the command deck of the Endurance, staring out at the stars. She had always believed in the potential of humanity and the strength of those who had been overlooked. But now, as they prepared for what could be the final battle against the Council, she felt the full weight of their mission. They were no longer just fighting for the Althari. They were fighting for the future of every forgotten race in the galaxy. Captain, we've received a transmission from the Galactic Council, Lieutenant Tanner said, his voice filled with tension. They want to speak with you. Ilara took a deep breath and nodded. She had expected this. The Council wouldn't let them operate in peace for much longer. She signaled for the communication system to be activated. The screen flickered, and the same representative who had threatened them before appeared on the display. Captain Miles, the representative's voice was cold. You've crossed a line. The Althari are a threat to the peace of the galaxy, and your actions have endangered the stability of the entire region. We've given you a chance to stop, but you've ignored our warning. You now face the consequences. Ilara met the representative's gaze without flinching. We're not the ones threatening peace. The Council abandoned the Althari and countless other civilizations. We're giving them a chance to rebuild, to live in peace. You've ignored them for too long. The representative's expression remained unchanging. You will cease all operations immediately, or we will be forced to take action. The Endurance is surrounded by forces of the Galactic Council. Surrender now, and we might spare you. Ilara's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. We won't surrender. The Altheri deserve their chance to rise again, and we will not stand down. If you want to stop us, you'll have to destroy us." The representative's eyes narrowed, and the transmission ended. The crew stood in tense silence, knowing the time for talk was over. "They'll come for us," Lieutenant Tanner said quietly. "We're outnumbered, Captain. We'll need all the help we can get." Ilara nodded, her mind already working through their options. They had already reached out to more civilizations, the forgotten races that the Council had ignored or oppressed. Some had responded, offering support. But now, they would need to unite those forces and stand together. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. "We'll make our stand here," Ilara said. "We've already prepared the Altheri technology, and the Caldari have reinforced our defenses. We have one shot at this." Dr. Malin entered the command room, her expression determined. "The Altheri energy core is ready. It's powerful, but we'll need to be careful. If we use too much, it could backfire." "We'll take that risk," Ilara said, turning to face her crew. "We can't let the Council erase the Altheri's future. We've come too far." As the Endurance prepared for the coming battle, the crew worked quickly to fortify their position. The Caldari had offered their advanced technology, and together they reinforced the station's defenses, preparing for a fight that could change the fate of the galaxy. Hours passed, and then came the first signs of the Council's arrival. A fleet of ships appeared on the horizon, their dark forms cutting through the vast emptiness of space. Ilara's heart raced, but she didn't flinch. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The battle was fierce. The Council's fleet was large, and their ships were equipped with the latest technology. But the Endurance had something they didn't: a coalition of races who had been forgotten, all fighting for the same cause. The Caldari's weapon systems were powerful, and the Altheri's hidden energy technology gave them an advantage no one had expected. Together, they fought back against the Council's forces, holding their ground. But the fight wasn't just about firepower. It was about unity. For every ship that fell, there were more coming to their aid. Ships from distant star systems, ships from civilizations that had long been overlooked. The Caldari, the Altheri, the humans, all of them stood together against a common enemy. As the battle raged on, Ilara stood at the helm, guiding the Endurance through the chaos. She had never felt more certain of their mission. The future of the galaxy depended on them, and they would not fail. In the end, the Council's forces were forced to retreat. They couldn't withstand the united front of the forgotten races. The Endurance had held its ground, and the Altheri had survived. As the last of the Council's ships disappeared into the distance, Ilara turned to face her crew. The battle was over, but the work was just beginning. The Altheri would rebuild, and with the help of their new allies, they would forge a new future. Ilara smiled, knowing that they had made history. The galaxy had changed, and the forgotten races had found their place once again.